Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Immigration for All presented by Noura Global. I'm your host 𝐬𝐬𝐦𝐬𝐬 This session will also podcast in Spotify and Apple Podcast for your convenience. Today's session is our second episode of Athletes Immigration to the US. No need to remind you that if you have any questions or comments, share them with us through the comment box. Without any delay, let's welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Raju Mahajan, the Principal Attorney of Raju Law. Hello, Mr. Mahajan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. How are you?
Thank you, good. And about you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Yeah, so as you said, without further delay, let's go to our second part 2 for athletes immigration to United States. I would like to see the PowerPoint. All right, so I just want to recap and remind you guys that we already had a session, like a live session about athletes immigration to USA, part 1. I think it's like 15 days ago, and today is the part 2. So next slide, please. And those who already know that this presentation is live in our Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also the audio version is available in Apple and Spotify podcasts. So those who are listening to our audio, when I say next slide, I mean I have a PowerPoint presentation. However, I read everything from the PowerPoint, so you're not missing anything if you're not watching the video. Do not worry about that part. All right, so athletes immigration is basically divided into 2 parts: non-immigrant categories and immigrant categories. So in our previous session, we talked about O1, O2, P1, P3, those categories. So I'm not going that detail about those categories in our today's presentation. Next slide, please. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk about J categories, Q categories, H2B, B1, B2, those non-immigrant categories, and also I'm going to talk about immigrant categories like EB1A, NIW, those categories too. So let me tell you. So today we are going to talk about J category, Q category, H2B, B1, B2, and also immigrant categories like EB1 and NIW. Next slide, please. So these are the immigrant categories I already mentioned. Next slide, please. All right. So what is J1 visa, exchange visitor program? So let me tell you a little bit about J categories. Most of the people who come to America under J program, they are students. So they basically come here to get some training, get some learning skill kind of things. And not all institutes are allowed to sponsor J visas. They need to apply to Department of State, and Department of State needs to affirmatively approve the J program, and then people can come from foreign countries to get some work experience here, learning and training kind of purposes. Same thing is applicable for athletes too. So J1 is for athletes participating in exchange visitor programs, including training or educational opportunities in the US that allow athletes to enhance their skill, engage in development programs, or experience US sport culture. Of course, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So many of you already know that under J category, some people, they come with a 2 years home back requirement, meaning after completion of this program, J program, you need to go back to your home country and you need to perform your work for 2 years before you can apply for US green card. However, not all J programs come with 2 years home requirement. So when you get a J1 visa, please double check whether your visa has a 2 years home requirement or not. If it does not have a 2-year home requirement, that's great. But if it does, then of course, either you have to go back and work, or you have to apply for a waiver. I'm not going that detail here because J1 is not the only topic today. We have to talk a lot of things. By the way, I have a totally multiple videos about J1 waivers. If you go to our channels, you'll be able to watch those videos too. All right, so what are the criteria? The athlete must be accepted into an official exchange program approved by the Department of State. As I said, these can include training program, internship, or educational opportunities. So there are multiple different kinds of programs under J1, and then you can get admitted to any of this. Next slide, please. Also, the athlete must show evidence of financial support or sponsorship for the duration of their stay in the US. ensuring they can cover living and training expenses. This can come from the exchange program, a sponsor, or personal funds. So in most cases, you do not have to worry about that. In general, the sponsoring organization, either that's an agency or institute, they are going to pay you. So your fund will come from the school or the program. However, if they say no, we are not going to give you any money, then you have to make sure that you have enough fund so that you can pay for the training and your living expense while you are in America. Also, another very important information, you need a petitioner to apply for J1 visa. You cannot apply by yourself. There must be an institute or an organization here in America who are going to sponsor your J categories. You cannot apply by yourself. Next slide, please. Also, there are some special considerations for J categories. J1 visa often require participants to return to their home country for 2 years. As I said, period of stay, extension of stay. The length of stay is determined by the specific exchange program. Extensions are possible based on the program's need and may be granted for an additional period depending on the nature of the exchange opportunity. So bottom line, depends on the situation, your J1 visa can be extended. All right, next slide, please. Now Q. So, J1 is for exchange program, right? Similarly, Q1 visa is for cultural exchange program. So what is the difference between J1 and Q1? J1 is anybody is eligible for J1. Any exchange program is eligible for J1. On the other hand, Q visa is for cultural exchange program. So there's the additional word cultural, meaning there must be some sort of cultural connection. Let me give you an example. So soccer, in America we call it soccer, rest of the world call football. Football is not a cultural element. It's a universal, it's an international sport. Every country plays it. So you cannot come to America under Q1 visa to play soccer or cricket. On the other hand, let's say you are an expert athlete in a traditional Japanese martial art. Yes, you can come to America both under J1 and also Q1, because Q1 is for cultural exchange program and J1 is for everybody. So let me talk about the description. For athletes participating in cultural exchange program intended to share the traditions of their, hold on a second, please. Sorry about that. Programs intended to share the tradition of their home country. This visa enables athletes to participate in exhibitions, performance, or activities that promote their unique cultural heritage. For example, as I said, traditional martial arts from Japan. By the way, I have a book. It's called Traditional Sports and Games of Bangladesh. I have mentioned 128 games in that book. Let me show you the copy of the book. So this is the book, Traditional Sports and Games of Bangladesh. This book is available in Amazon and in Barnes and Nobles everywhere. If any person who is expert about any of these games, they can actually come to America to perform Q visa. Of course, you need a sponsorship from a sponsoring organization. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you as an example that it must be a cultural element where you can apply for Q1. Next slide, please. All right, so general requirements, at least 18 years old, you must be 18 years old, qualified to perform service, labor, or training, of course, ability to communicate effectively to the cultural attributes of their country to the American public. So meaning you must be good in English communication. Even if you are a super genius player, if you can play good sport, but if you cannot communicate, if you cannot spread your cultural things, it would be difficult to get a Q visa. So you must have English proficiency and other communication skill. A special consideration, Q1 visas are distinct from J1 and are more focused on cultural exchange than training or education. As I mentioned, the Q1 visa does not allow for spouses or children to accompany the athletes. This is a very significant difference from J1, because under J1, you can bring your spouse and children with you when you come to America. But under Q1, you cannot. Next slide, please. Period of stay up to 15 months based on the duration of the cultural exchange program. It depends on the duration, but up to 15 months. Next slide, please. Yeah, now we are going to talk about H-2B visa, temporary non-agricultural worker. By the way, there is a great news. There's a great news about H-2B visa. there used to be a list of the countries, and most of the countries are like, European countries and other, like, good, like rich countries. However, on January 17th, USCIS removed the country list. Now, people from all over the world, they can come to America under H-2B visa. And of course, this is a groundbreaking news in American immigration. Of course, not a lot of people are paying attention. Everybody is scared about asylum and other thing, but H-2B is going to be a big deal in American immigration in next 4 or 5 years. By the way, let me go back to H-2B visa for athletes. Occasionally, applicable to athletes participating in seasonal or temporary sporting events. So under H-2B, it must be a seasonal or temporary event, where you're coming to perform. General requirements: proof of temporary job offer from a U.S. employer. As I said, you must have a job. You must have a sponsor who is going to sponsoring your stay here in America. Evidence that the role is temporary and not year-round. It cannot be a year-long contract. There might be a seasonal job. The best example is, in the summertime, there's a lot of summer camps, and in the summer camps, they need like a trainers. They need soccer trainer, cricket trainer, karate, or any kind of trainer. So they can be a beneficiary of H-2B visa. Similarly, in the swimming pool, they need lifeguard and other thing. Those are like really good example of H-2B visa. The employer must show that no US workers are available to fill that position. It's very easy to do that because in American people, they don't like to work. So it's very easy to meet the requirement. But those are the requirements for H-2B visa. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I don't know what is happening in our tech. I don't know. I think there's a technical problem. My PowerPoint is gone. So as I was saying, H-2B. Now I'm going to talk about B1, B2. So many times, it happens. People apply for B1, B2 visa, and then they get approved, and they come to America, and their duration of okay, yeah. Let's go to Let's next slide, please. Okay, yeah. So sorry about the technical glitch. So there are some special considerations for H-2B. Every year, the DHS announced the list of. I just mentioned that from January 17, there is no country list. So people from all over the world, they can come to America and they can perform their job here. Next slide, please. All right, B1, B2, visit visa. Many of you already know about B1, B2 visa. So, good for athletes participating in short-term amateur events or consultations. General requirement: proof of the non-commercial nature of the event. This is a big deal. This is a very important information. Please pay attention. Under B1, B2 visa, you cannot take any money. You cannot take any salary, any remuneration, or any form of money. A lot of time what happens is people say, oh, I did not take any salary, I did not take any money. That guy, he paid for my home, he rented my apartment, he paid for my food and other thing. That is also not allowed. So please pay attention there. You cannot take money in any firm. It must be 100% paid by you if you are here with B1, B2 visa. So many people violate this rule for B1, B2, and then they get bar for when they try to re-enter to America. Please pay attention. Under B1, B2, you are not allowed to take any money in any format. By the way, another requirement is documentation of the event or invitation. Those are like the common requirement. Everybody knows that. The one thing, please remember, you are not allowed to take any money from anyone while you are in B1, B2 in any format. Next slide, please. All right. So those were non-immigrant categories. People, you already probably know that non-immigrant means you're coming to America for a temporary period, for a temporary purpose. Once that period is gone, purpose is gone, you must go back to your home country. And anytime in the airport or in the embassy, if anybody asks you question regarding a non-immigrant visa, you must say that after performing this work or this thing, you're going back to your home country. If you ever say that you have an intent to stay in America, then you violate the requirement for the visa, and your visa will be revoked. That is a big requirement. Please pay attention. Now I'm going to talk about immigrant visas, meaning you are going to get green cards. So there are two major categories for athletes to get green card. One is EB1, another one is NIW. I'm not going that detail here because I have a total multiple videos and audios about EB1. You can go to my YouTube channel and other place. Please listen to those audio because that's a total separate discussion. But here, for the purpose of this session, I'm going to tell you the 10 requirements, 10 criteria. Among these 10 criteria, you have to meet 3. If you meet 3 of these 10 criteria, you are eligible to apply for EB1. However, I personally recommend you to meet 5 criteria. If you meet 5 criteria, then your case is strong, then you can apply for EB1. Those 10 criteria are major national or international awards, number 1. Number 2, membership in elite associations. Number 3, published material about the athlete. Number 4, judging the work of others. Number 5, significant contributions to the field. Number 6, authorship of scholarly articles. Number 7, high salary or remuneration. Number 8, participation in distinguished events. Number 9, leading or starring role. Number 10, other comparable evidence. Other comparable evidence means it's kind of catch all for everything. So again, I'm not going detail about EB1. We have a separate video. Please watch that video. Next slide, please. All right, NIW. NIW is another great tool for athletes to apply for US green card, get it approved, and come to America with the entire family. And by family, I mean husband, wife, and any children under the age of 21. Again, we have separate multiple videos. I'm not going that detail here. Just I want to tell you one sentence before we conclude our session today, like presentation today. In NIW application, please pay very, very attention to national interest part. National interest is the most important part for NIW application. Many people, they apply for NIW without paying enough attention to national interest. That's why their case get denied. Please pay enough attention for NI part, national interest part. All right, thank you very much. Now we're going back to Marjia.
Thank you, Mr. Majan. Thank you, Mr. Majan. Thank you for your presentation. Let's answer some questions that are received from our last session. Someone asked me that our esports athletes are also eligible for the athletes pathway immigration.
Can you please say the question again?
E-sport, like gamers.
Oh, no. The e-sport player, they're not. However, so that's a good question. There's a lot of convention, like a lot of, video game convention, other things. So they may be eligible. We have to see. But for e-sports, you have to, similarly, you have to get a sponsorship from the e-sporting company. But since, people from all over the world, they can play from their home. Like, if there is a big convention, you can actually play from your home. You do not need to come to America. So that creates extra dimension. But in general, e-sport players are not allowed. But there can be some special circumstances.
Yep. I just need to emphasize, as you know, e-sports also have some world events like Olympic. Mm-hmm. So they are a category of sports, international sports. So maybe the question is related to that.
Exactly. If there is an Olympic, for e-sports, or if there's like a big convention, everybody is coming in person, then yes, that will qualify. But the event is online. You can participate from anywhere in the world. Then you will not qualify.
Okay. Thank you. Also, someone else asked you what option exists for junior athletes, the person that who are attended the Junior Olympic athletes, and also Paralympic.
Yeah. So, for some categories, there is a requirement for 18 years or older. Most other categories, they do not require anything like that. So if there is a category that do not require any age, then, of course, junior athletes, para Olympic participants, they can come. But if there's any specific requirement, as I mentioned, for Q category, there's a minimum requirement that you must be 18 years old, then you cannot come for Q, but you're eligible for other categories.
Okay, can they also apply for their parents, because most of them are under 18?
Well, it depends. Yes. So since they're under 18, if they need like a local guardian, if they cannot make any decision, then yes, they can also apply for parents. As a, many athletes, they have a supporting staff. Like, they can apply for their trainer, they can apply for their physiotherapist, their nutritionist. So they can also apply for their parent, let's say as a trainer or as a manager kind of thing. So parents, even though they're coming here, they're basically coming here as a more of a manager kind of position.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask some question about Q1 visa.
Mhm.
You mentioned ability in cultural sports. What level of ability is required for the target cultural sport?
So I would say that you get a recommendation letter from someone in your country that you are a expert in this field. A lot of the games, they don't have any international reputation, so it would be very difficult to judge the level. But if you can show that you are one of the top in your home country, then you will qualify for that. And again, you are coming here in America to display that game, spread the cultural message, and you must have a sponsorship from here, like a job from here. So if you can get a job here in America, I do not think the level of expertise is a big issue.
Yeah. Actually, the most problem for people in most of this type of visa is documentation. For example, in EB1 visa, what documentation proves significant contribution to the field, as you mentioned, as one of the 10?
For example, so let's say you are a soccer player in Iran. Let me give you an example. And you played in a national team, of course, and also you created a club for, let's say, disabled people, or women, or like traditionally marginalized communities. You created a club or like an association to encourage those people to play soccer. So we can show that not only you are a good player, of course you're a good player, you played in the national team, but also you have a significant contribution for this game, for this industry. You are encouraging young children to play soccer kind of thing. So it depends. It's a very depending situation, but any kind of contribution, and if you can show some evidence. So let's say you organized an event, or you launched an organization, and if you can get some recommendation letter from others, that will qualify.
Thank you, Mr. Majan, for answering my questions. We don't have any more comments here. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Dear audience, thank you so much for attending. Next week, we have another live session during the same time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern Time and 10 p.m. Bangladesh time. Till then, have a great week. Before we wrap up, we would like to give a quick glance on the major immigration news of the week.
Welcome to the latest episode of Weekly Immigration News by Raju Law. This week, we brought to you 4 latest developments in the immigration arena. Let's start with the headlines. USCIS opens fiscal year 2026 H-1B registration. Refugee admission suspended under Executive Order 14163. US updates visa appointment schedule for China and Middle East. DOL updates PARM and prevailing wage processing times. Let's get into details. USCIS will open the fiscal year 2026 H-1B CAP registration from March 7 to March 24, 2025. Petitioners must register beneficiary's online account with a $215 fee. Selections will be announced by March 31st using a beneficiary-centric process. New organizational account features streamlined data entry, and the Treasury has temporarily raised the daily credit card limit to $99,999.99 for high-volume payments. Next up, following Executive Order 14163, on January 20, 2025, the U.S. government suspended all refugee applications under USRAP, including FTJR processing. FTJR beneficiaries should contact U.S. embassies, consulates, or the NVC for updates. Those with unexpired boarding foils should direct entry-related questions to CBP. Moving on, the U.S. Embassy and consulates in China will now open non-immigrant visa appointments weekly at set times. A new visa services system will launch on February 8 to 9, 2025 in Pakistan, Egypt, Nepal, Qatar, and Kuwait. From February 4 to 7, fee payments, call centers, and interview scheduling will be unavailable. Check embassy websites or ustraveldocs.com for updates. Finally, DOL updated processing times for PERM and prevailing wage determinations. As of February 1, PERM applications from September 2023 were still in review, with appeals from July 2024 under consideration. Analyst review averaged 489 days in January 2025. PWD requests from July 2024 were being processed, with appeals from late 2024 under review. Center Director reviews were ongoing for H-1B cases from August 2024 and PERM cases from April 2024.